All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our third O-MUN Podcast. We decided to do this using the new Google Plus Hangouts. We are broadcasting this, with the on-air function on the Google Plus Hangouts. Today, we are joined by myself, Nick Ye, Assistant Director of Moderator Training for the school year of 2014 and 2015, Russel Evans, who's the Assistant Director of Americas and Europe, and Ervin, Assistant Director of Educational Opportunities, right?
Yeah, something like that. I like how you didn't even try to pronounce my last name.
Tankiang?
You can go to pronounce it.
Okay. So if you are listening in, we basically have we had two podcasts that we recorded that are audio form, and it basically died. We didn't have enough time. People were in and out, and so after a lot of discussion, we decided to bring it back again. And please look, those who will join us, please look forward to other moderators, others who will be leading discussions, and special guests in the future. Since we last ran this podcast, there has been a lot of news. And I want to first start off going back to one of the issues we talked about last time, which was on Egypt. This was a time when there was still a military dictatorship, and people were unsure whether or not the democracy with protests would create a environment for democracy to continue, or as opposed to a current military takeover. Now at this time, we have just witnessed Egypt going through its first democratic elections and voting in the military leader, General Sisi. Many see this as an example of the Egyptian people finally taking control of who they want to lead them, and others say this as a legitimate way of keeping the military dictatorship. What do you guys think?
Russell, do you want to go first, or what you want me to time?
Go ahead.
To go to that first direct question, it seems like a step back in the past. There are enough. What's happened in Egypt is basically. Oh, we have a new guest. Basically, what's happened is that we've gone full circle. We had the revolution, the Tahrir Square, and the events surrounding that. That was the legitimate popular movement. You could argue that there were some other elements involved as well, but essentially what has happened is that because of the instability that's occurred, it feels like it's just reverted to how Middle Eastern, to how governments in this world always do, that when there's instability, the military comes back in and restores order. And the position we're in now is worse than we started, well, as bad as we started, where the Muslim Brotherhood is again a banned organization. So.
Now, do you see that, now that the military leader has basically taken over legitimately, does that mean that nothing's going to change? That we're gonna basically see a new dictator rule the country just like Mubarak did for the last so and so years?
Well, as much as I don't like to say this, I almost think it will, because especially I found it interesting that you say that he was elected legitimately, because a lot of people would argue that he wasn't elected legitimately, and that because such broad swathes of the electorate were disenfranchised, and you could say the Islamists were disenfranchised by the complete banning of their political party and their political activity, and that's one aspect of it. And the other aspect of it is because there's been so much instability, the people have nowhere else to turn, really. I mean, that because Al-Sisi has provided them with a semblance of stability, and has been able to give the Egyptian people a common enemy to unite against, being the Islamist terrorists. He's likely to enjoy a lot of popular support for a long time.
So, in other words, a lesser of two evils.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it, definitely.
Yeah, and like I don't know, if you look at the polls, and they're still unofficial as of now, but CC won 96.6% of the vote. I find it hard to believe that somebody getting elected legitimately wins 96% of the vote. That's just me though. Anyways, I really think that within 5 to 10 years there will be another revolution. Don't quote me on that because I could very well be wrong, but that's just my unofficial prediction, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely like Ervin said. I think
There
it's
will be
step back. Yeah, there will be a revolt against CC's rule because he's basically
possible then that because
from what I hear, he's basically like.
Is it possible though that people will see this like Ervin said, a sign of stability, and that his reign will continue for another 2 or 3 decades before people finally get angry at him?
Well, I'll just chime in on that point because yes, he'll bring stability, but the big change is that a revolution has occurred, like a big revolution. I mean, this is fairly unprecedented in Egypt's history. Egypt only became an independent nation basically in the 50s. Don't quote me, but the creation of Egypt was as a result of secular Arab nationalism. So that's a completely different thing to what's going on now with the rise of a popular Islamic movement. Such movements have been sort of suppressed in North Africa and the Middle East for a very long time. But now you've had, remind me of the spring, of the Arab Spring. Now you've had that occur. There's no way to undo the agitation that's caused. Al-Sisi may rule for maybe a decade or so, but the same problems exist. He'll basically be Mubarak light, and the same people will be opposing him. The question is, how effectively will Al-Sisi be able to suppress and to destroy the opposition movements? I mean, if he's that ruthless, he could set back the opposition movement decades. However, there's no way if his government becomes unstable for any reason, all the same things that created the Arab Spring will occur again.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is you have to look at how he handles the economy, because if there's a genuine chance that if he manages to fix the problems that existed in the economy under Mubarak and then again under Morsi, then he might have a long reign. He might rule for 20 or 30 years, because half of the battle in the Middle East, I think, is having a stable economy, because if you look at Kuwait and other countries, they have dictatorships, but they also have their people have a high standard of living and don't have a very high need to be unhappy with the government. If you take Egypt and Tunisia, for example, before the Arab Spring, youth unemployment was, I think, 50%. The economy was stagnant. People weren't making any money. They couldn't find jobs. So the need to revolt against the system was there. If Sisi can somehow eliminate that, then I think he'll have a long reign. But seeing how he's said to be Mubarak light, I don't think he will.
Well, just to finally end and move on, a lot of Egypt's history has been basically military coup after military coup after military coup. I mean, right now maybe we're just looking at the next military coup, and that we're going to see in a couple years' time, Sisi's going to let his guard down, and it's going to be the next guy's going to come in. Whatever happens, though, it's going to be interesting to see how this will affect future U.S.-Egypt relations, because when we talked about this before, is that Ibrahim talked about how we were saying that if the U.S. pulled out military support from Egypt, Sisi would lose his power and he would not be able to control the masses. Now that he's in power, does that mean U.S. support will continue in his direction, or will they support another opposition group? Let's move on. Go ahead.
No. I guess. Well, I was just gonna say it depends. on what direction that the administration will want to take now. Is it going to go for stability, or is it going to go for principle? So, that's all I wanted to say.
Mhm.
Let's move on to something more lighter and something that's very interesting to talk about is, what do you guys think about the World Cup? And now I know this is maybe not current events news, but people are saying that Brazil is not going to be ready.
Oh, that's fine.
That stadiums are still being built and infrastructure is not there, crime is rampant. I mean, is this a sign that these BRIC nations who are getting international recognition, who are getting, Olympic and I think was it 2016 Rio de Janeiro?
Yeah.
Well, I think we cut out for a minute, so
Yeah, we cut it.
I think the last sentence or two.
Well, let me then recap. Is Brazil ready for the World Cup?
Well, Brazil faces similar problems to how South Africa faced in hosting the 2010 World Cup. And I imagine it will go the same way that
What do you guys think?
South Africa did, almost. I'm not... Yes, there have been a lot of... Although, having said that, Brazil has been more unstable in the lead-up to its World Cup than South Africa. And that's probably because South Africa actually has had a record of hosting large-scale tournaments, thanks to the Afrikaner and Anglo-Saxon units, and thanks to the lovely game of cricket, and rugby union, because South Africa hosted the Rugby Union World Cup and multiple World Cups in cricket. That's probably what got them over the line. That's the risk for Brazil. It's hosted a number of major soccer or football tournaments naturally, but on a global scale, it has never actually hosted anything substantial. So that's the concern. Also, the riots and other things. Russell, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of, I've heard of the unrest in Brazil, but I never really did a whole lot of research on it.
Neither.
Just, I think Brazil is better equipped and more prepared than any other South American country, aside from maybe to host the World Cup and the Olympics. But yeah, I mean, I think it'll end up being basically what South Africa was like. If you look at the last Winter Olympics, everybody thought Sochi was going to be a disaster, and aside from the Olympic ring, it was fairly okay. But yeah, I think it'll turn out okay. I mean, that's I haven't done enough research on it to give a well-educated opinion, but I think it'll turn out.
It's okay. You're a Molly UN person. You can make this up.
Yeah. Okay. I think the Brazilians will not only have a great World Cup, but they will win it. I don't actually think that.
Well, the statistical models pretty much enough predictions are going their way. Just a little note of trivia. I was looking at some various prediction models, and they're giving the United States a 0.5% chance of winning the thing, and they're giving Australia a 0.1% chance of winning the thing. So we're in such great positions, aren't we?
They're being really generous to the U.S. They don't have Landon Donovan. They can't win without Landon Donovan, but they do have Michael Brett.
Who's in the U.S. group again? I can't remember.
I think it's Croatia and somebody else, Portugal maybe.
Yeah. Well, we're far. We're far into like our chances are far down. Like far out of the realm of possibility. Our group: Brazil, Chile, and wait, no, hang on. It's something ridiculous. It's called the group of death for a reason.
No, you don't have Brazil. The U.S. is Portugal, Germany, and Ghana. Australia is Spain, the Netherlands, and Chile.
Yeah, sorry. Why did I think Brazil? Yeah, Spain, Netherlands, seriously, and Chile. If we get out of that group, it will be a miracle. And if we manage to come second in the group, we will probably get Brazil in the first knockout round.
Basically, you're not doing anything.
Yeah. So, to anyone listening, I hope your country has a better chance of winning the World Cup than either of our countries.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
No, my country's not even in the World Cup.
Well, oh yeah, Canada's not even the World. Well, okay, but yeah, that's true. Yeah, well.
Yeah,
well,
we
someone speak.
Nick, we can hear you. What are your thoughts on this, Nicholas?
Nick, yeah?
Yes.
We apologize to our viewers. We appear to be having some technical difficulties. Hopefully this.
I don't watch soccer or football, whatever it's called.
Oh, Nick. Well, that's fine. Your country doesn't even have any representation. On that note, I think.
Don't even give me that, Ervin. That's a low.
Well, to be fair, they do have representation, just not as what they're called.
Oh man! Wow.
Wait, is Taiwan even in the AFC?
Let's move on.
What's our next topic of discussion, Nick?
You guys are awful. Economic cooperation.
Yeah.
I do.
I mean, one of the two largest countries together.
The Russia-China.
With this new economic that the
deal.
U.S. has something to be worried about. Well,
I would almost say no, because this gas, or just with this one gas deal, yes, it looks quite substantial, but China, as far as I've been made aware, was quite how do I put this? It struck a hard deal in negotiation with Russia. It forced Russia's hand in lowering its price at least. And I guess it's symbolic of a lot of things, because while China and Russia, against various aspects of the Western world, they're quite in agreement. They resist the imposition of a sort of a Western multilateral, or the Western ethical and worldview model. They also have substantial differences, and I don't see beyond the economics. I know there's been a lot of movement. There's a big CICA meeting. Essentially, it was a meeting with Russia and China and a whole bunch of Asian countries, which they released a communique essentially telling the US to stay out. But for all those sort of talks, Russia and China also have competing goals in the Asian region, as well as complementary goals.
but I mean, if you look at it, they both had. I mean, communist China came from Soviet Russian roots, and as soon as right now China is the only communist country, but you look at a leader like Putin, who looks like he wants to bring back the old Cold War. Would these two leaders have a chance at cornering the market? I mean, basically isolating that whole region to themselves. I mean, is this gonna be like they're gonna start pushing South Korea and Japan to kick them out? I mean, Ervin, you posted an article the other day saying that Japan would support any country that has disputes with China.
It's a good point, because I was about to get to that. In regards to your first question, yes, Russian... How do I put this? Actually, give me a few moments. Russell, do you have any thoughts before I launch in on the rant?
Yeah, well, like just on the point Nick made about Russia and China and communism. Sure, Putin wants to seems like he wants to bring back the Cold War, but I don't see any sign that he wants to bring back Soviet communism. And we can't forget that yes, for most of its history, China was very communist along the Soviet model. But that Mao and Stalin and the Soviet Union also had a falling out, and after I think it was like 1959 or 60, there was a Sino-Soviet split where they just completely no longer aligned. So
that was actually what that was actually why I wanted to bring up exactly what Russell just said, because that's the problem with putting Russia and China together, because historically, like Russell has just said, they've had reasons to come together, but there are enough reasons that will drive them apart. And also I agree with what Russell said about communism, in that China is communist, but it's still technically communist. However, ever since the late 80s, Deng Xiaoping came in and instituted free market reforms, giving rise to the famous quote, "It doesn't matter if the cat is black or white, as long as it catches mice." Obviously, China no longer subscribes to the economic model of communism. The only model that it's going to subscribe to is the sort of the authoritarian party model. So it sort of keeps it control of the country. That's China's main concern.
Yeah.
So
and I actually
Russia's going the same way.
I actually went to a lecture when I was in college, and I was talking to this guy, and he was saying the next big step China will do in the next 10 or 15 years is to drop the communist name in the party. In essence, just becoming either the People's Republic of China and running their government as the party government, but basically dropping the communists, because it's a misnomer. As you said, the communist idea was very economically based. But you're looking at now, there is state industry, but there's also a huge amount of private industries. They're huge in export and import business. They're definitely not trying to become self-sufficient. Go ahead.
Yeah, and all of the state industries, too, are run for profit and traded on the stock market. So even though there are state industries, they're run as if they're capitalist industries. So, like I like to say that China is the most capitalist communist country in the world.
Yeah, the only contender for that title, apart from China, is, Vietnam.
Or Cuba.
Cuba is more an interesting thing. However, it's changed a lot since.
But they do it in a way that's kind of okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have sympathies towards Cuba. I'm sorry.
I'm so surprised, Russell. I did not know this. I'm shocked.
Yeah, knowing my views, impossible.
So yeah, just to go back to what Nick meant in regards to a geopolitical shift, that's been made more complicated by our next topic, which is the Crimea. and Russian intervention in the Ukraine. Because the one big thing that is in the forefront of China's mind, and the reason why it sided with Russia in so many issues, from Syria to any other intervention sort of thing, is that it is wedded to the idea of state sovereignty. It abhors any external involvement in its affairs, and it keeps that position quite consistent. So, if you were to notice, when the UN votes in Security Council on Crimea, largely China has remained fairly quiet and has abstained. I mean, you can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but and the reason why China has tried to abstain is that, yes, it supports Russia to a way, but Russia's done something that, if China endorses it, sets a bad precedent, especially in areas like the South China Sea and the East China Sea and everywhere else in China that's not Han Chinese. So, I don't see China relying on Russia to fight its battles in the Pacific. If anything, Russia economically couldn't support, in my view, both the current situation in its European border and simultaneously build up its Far East Navy. The Russian economy is too far in the tank for that. The Russian military is still strong, but it doesn't have a projection at this point.
I mean, if you look at it, the thing is that the reason why China didn't want to intervene is that when China is trading partners with both Ukraine and Russia. They trade a lot of things with both sides, and also China has always been that non-interventionist policy. So there's no way that they can say, look, we want to intervene, at the same time saying we want to affect our economic ties with either of these countries. Because, for and foremost, China loves to make more money rather than piss people off. I mean, you look at them investing in both coasts of the African continent, and then you see them investing in various other Middle Eastern countries. They're not there to instigate any problems. They just want to sustain their economic growth in an efficient way.
And I suppose another thing is to sort of return to what they see as their rightful position in the world, which is a significant and central global power. Fun fact, because in addition to trying to economically build up, China's obviously trying to build up a military and navy that's commensurate with that sort of is that standard. So when you were talking about Ukraine, that reminded me of the fact that China is starting to try to build up a aircraft carrier program, and it got its first aircraft carrier from Ukraine.
The Ukraine.
Oh, Ukraine. Calling it the Ukraine is outdated, I think. I've been told.
What do you think, Russell?
Yeah, I mean, whatever I'm gonna say is gonna just reiterate everything Ervin just said. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Just like on the issue of Ukraine, I think one of the most hilarious things for me was after Putin annexed Crimea and invaded Ukraine, essentially. John Kerry came out and said it is despicable that a country could go in and occupy a country, and it's a complete violation of international law, as if he'd forgotten that Iraq happened. I get that John Kerry as a senator voted against the Iraq War, and maybe he has a bit more right to say that than say like Condoleezza Rice or Colin Powell. But if you're representing the United States, you pick your words there.
Yeah, you have to recognize that you inherit all the baggage.
Yeah.
I mean, the United States, in terms of interventions, I don't think we have enough time to list them all down.
We're not here to crap on the U.S.
But we've been crapping on. We've been sort of putting the beat down on China and Russia. I guess we have to be a little bit balanced.
Nick, we're both Canadian. We have to crap on the U.S.
Yeah, you are, aren't you? And actually, as the Australian,
Guys, I have American citizenship too, and I go to the university in the U.S.
Hey, so do I.
I don't want to. I want to.
I fit all those categories as well, but I'm still okay with crapping on the U.S.
although the NSA is
All right,
probably
so-
listening and is probably taking notes on you both.
Well, you know.
Anyways, let's wrap this up. Before we end, we just want to let you guys know to our listeners that we will be opening this cast to other members of the O-MUN executive leadership team, global leadership team, and perhaps delegates in the future. I will these podcasts very much longer, seeing as Ervin is apparently supposed to take over this role for me. But otherwise, we are very happy to continue with this podcast with you.
Host, as long as you have,
And
I guess, as long as your technology holds up, which it hasn't tonight.
well, this whole podcast was working to see if we can get the kinks out, and we're gonna have to talk about if we really want to do video broadcasting because there is a lot of lag. Like you guys will be talking, I can see your faces move like 5 seconds later.
Well,
But anyways,
I mean, Russell. Yeah.
you.
I'll let you talk. I'm sorry.
So, anyways, we'll be looking to do this probably on a weekly basis, if not at least 2 to 3 times a month, depending on what kind of news. That said, we are not going to talk about like MH370 for like 3 to 4 weeks on end, like certain news broadcasting companies do. But otherwise, we will try to find. We're gonna. Yeah, they're never gonna find it. But and condolences. I'm sorry for those who have lost family members, friends, whatever on that flight. But that said, we will try to keep updated on current events. We would like to offer our various opinions on various events. We'll also maybe talk about sports as they come on, and try not to be as serious as possible, like during debate. I mean, one quick example is that it's upset City in French Open. I mean, you look at the women's seed; it's like terrible.
Yeah, it's been a very
so
interesting
sad
this year. Well, it's a nice change to see a few different faces come up. That's all I'm going to say.
It is, but I'm also devastated at some players. But I'm still hoping Rafael Nadal is going to trip and die sometime, and my Novak Djokovic is going to win. I mean, you saw him with that ball boy during the rain.
Oh, that was nice. I mean, he has a good chance. It looks like on the women's side, the winner is going to be either, my view, it's going to be Sharapova or Samsung. I'm biased, obviously, because I want Stosur to win. But on the men's side, I mean, I do want Nadal to lose. I really do. But
let's not let we're trying to get this podcast back up, and we don't want to get rid of viewers already. I mean, we respect.
We don't have any Spaniards. We don't have many Spaniards. I think we can alienate that section of Sorry, Spaniards. No. I really love.
Anyways, thank you for joining us on our third podcast. We will try to continue at 1300 next time. We will definitely post the completed video on YouTube somewhere, and we will announce beforehand when we're recording our next one, so you can join us live. Once again, this is the third O-MUN Podcast, joined in with Ervin, Russell, and myself, Nick Ye, and we will definitely try to see you guys soon. Hopefully some other major catastrophe will influence us to come back online. Otherwise, feel free to continue the discussion in the comments as we post this. And please look us on Google+, Facebook, Twitter. I think we have an Instagram. What else do we have? Anything else? Snapchat? Do we have a Snapchat, guys?
I think we're on Renren. We should create an O-MUN. Maybe something else first before a Snapchat.
I think we're on Renren and Weibo, but I don't think they're going to be able to see this anyways.
Let's not even
So,
try.
we're just
Let's
gonna-
not.
We're just gonna leave it at that. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys later.